Just so people understand the format today now, we're going to hear from 2 panels at a time, and then when we're done with the panels, we will hear from 2 members of the jury, and then we will take a break. So now is the time for us to all really listen. So the first testimony I would like to call up is Connie Burton, who drove all the way here from Florida last night. Connie.
Good morning. First, I really want to express appreciation for the convenience of this tribunal, and also to my colleague for, insisting that I participate. I always start off with saying all power to the people, because I believe that as people, we should have power over our own lives. And with this self-determination of making clear choices on how we want to move, we'll be able to have a more united union other than what we have now. I was born, well, let me just also say that I would be remiss if I didn't pay honor to our ancestors. And I'm always thinking about great women of our struggle. And one of my sheroes is Sister Fannie Lou Hamer. Powerful sister. Many say unlearned, but learned that she was able to give us clear sounding instructions on knowing how to relieve ourselves of the ongoing pain that we suffer here in America. For me, growing up in what Malcolm says south of the border in this United States, I began to understand how my grandmother tried to, rear us to be quiet because we was coming from an uneducated class. My grandmother felt that those in power would do what was best for us. Because, hey, they was gifted, they was around policymakers, and surely they would do the right thing. So, like Dr. King described in his book, we patiently waited, we silently took it, we endured much. But for me, the point of pain of not being able to remain silent is when I seen the ongoing attack against people inside of my community. Born and reared inside of public housing all my life, as a child and as a parent, I began to understand how the system counted on the silence of our community to gather much of its resources for others. My sons, I have 2 sons, and they are POWs. Not because they went to Vietnam, but because of this ongoing war on drugs here in America. And every attempt to see when this war would end, that began around the 70s, we're left with unanswers of an ongoing need for the continuation of this war. We have seen those that my grandmother once described as being the learned ones co-opted into participation in this drug war in order to give them, gainful employment, a lot of times for them to get funding into their nonprofit, using the poverty and the pain of our community to fuel their own financial income. And so we've had programs in my community, probably in this community as well, such as Weed and Seed, that results in targeting the African community with enhanced penalties. Where in, say, affluent communities, walking around with a joint in your pocket might not even get you a citation. But in our communities, it's attached to felonies that will have long vibrating effects that would even hold the whole family siege. And so around 2005, my son, along with, I used to be a public housing manager. That's when it was popular, and under the Reagan administration, Jack Kemp, then the HUD director, came along with this wonderful idea that people that was living in poverty should be able to solve their own problems. It was a short-lived program. And we was given these jobs to, speak to the interests of our community and try to solve our own problems. And it worked for about 4 years. But in the midst of that, I found myself running into some real powerful forces that didn't want conditions to change. Because we want to know, why couldn't the federal monies that is being used to subsidize everybody in all programs, whether it was the Port Authority, aviation, whatever, why couldn't the very people that is part of this U.S. government participate in that in terms of jobs? We was quickly denied that. And so we began to see how monies were being used for more police enforcement, where officers that was just regular Joe Blows was getting exorbitant amount of overtime spending. We saw them round the clock 24 hours, and it wasn't free of charge. And we did public information requests and found out that these officers' salaries was escalating almost by threefold. We also, living in public housing, noticed that a lot of grants that was written that's supposed to improve the quality of life for the residents were being used not for the residents, but again, more policing of our community. We saw the beloved President Bill Clinton in 1996 use his executive power to put a bill together called One Striking You Out. That even if you are accused of a crime, since it's not a criminal offense, but in civil court, they can opt for an eviction, which many, many families, including myself, was forced out of public housing. My housing authority, the Tampa Housing Authority, you spent well over $500,000 in the eviction of myself. Why? Not because my son was no drug kingpin, but because we was trying to bring about change. We was asking the hard questions. We was making the demand of the board. We was going to city government. We was organizing our community, and they couldn't have that. And so we began to understand that in order for prosperity to remain in some middle class circles, it was dependent upon the impoverishment and the incarceration of our community. And we recognized that. And so when the brother started off with his piece of laying out the Human Rights Declaration, that we all supposed to have these rights of freedom and choices, which has been denied us across the board. Not only is the U.S. government guilty of that first article, but all of the rest of them, as dominoes fall, they're also guilty, in my opinion, of genocide. Because our community and our young people are not able to maintain any quality of life. It's painful. And I was fired up when I came, and those young sisters kind of calmed me down. Because, through their music, But I'm thinking day by day when we tell our young people to go to school, to get a quality education, right around the corner is a trap waiting for them. And we have seen our young men hauled off, branded like slaves, denied the ability to move forward, that there's no such thing as paying your debt to society when your society and your government needs you to be enslaved in order for one segment of society to be able to make it. You know, I looked at that 13th Amendment over and over again, trying to understand, how could they say we was free? How? In 1865, within 1 year of signing it and ratifying it and passing it all in 1 year, we find ourselves enslaved again. And it's okay. And it's even okay amongst ordinary citizens because they've been fed such bull that the war on drug is to protect them. And we see that it's not working. Millions and millions of dollars are being spent toward this unending war, and brown and black children is on the front end of this pain. And it's our responsibility to stop the pain. It's almost like if someone bend your arm, you got to be the one that fight to relieve that stress. Because a bully will never turn you loose unless you confront them. And so, you know, Sherry talked about living off of $300. I'm living off of $180 a month. Proud to be living off it too. Because I am determined in my resolve to see this fight to the end. I have a responsibility, and we all have a responsibility, to all those that believe in equality and justice, to all those that believe in a better America. We have a responsibility to turn this thing upside down and make it right. We got to come face to face with what is driving this deep, festering sore that America continue to put a Band-Aid over. And through its public policy, sometimes we support by voting of certain politicians. We got to overturn this. And I am determined that I am responsible for my sons and my sons' sons and my community's sons to speak against this evil that we see happening in our community. In Hillsborough County, where I live, Hillsborough County, that has nothing to offer the community, that has no economic base but prison, is #1 in the world in adjudicating juveniles into the adult prison system. So young people are getting not just 40 days, but 40 years. And it's all right. We have a responsibility to overturn that. I'd like to end with this, and this be almost my motivation piece every day, by Brother Frederick Douglass. It says, those who profess to favor freedom and yet disapprove of agitation, stirring people up, are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean with the awful roar of its many waters. We can't have a United States of America. We can't have America, the home of the brave, when it is conducive to the incarceration and enslavement of a whole class of people. We cannot have that. We have to stand against genocide. We can't look to other foreign countries and say it's wrong there and it not be wrong here. It is nasty, it is foul, it is disgusting. It must be overturned, and we the people can make it happen. Thank you so much.